Welcome to Her Life Unscripted podcast, inspiring burnt out, stressed out, and stretched thin women to embrace the unscriptedness of life. Hosted by Anna Osborne.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Her Life Unscripted, episode 38. I am so excited to be here with all of you today, and I love this new kind of concept in terms of the show of how we're doing each month a different topic that we're really diving into from all angles. And so, as you know from episode 37, we spoke about it already, but this month we are talking all around this area of wellness. And today I have the lovely Lisa Crilley on the episode today, and she just has this amazing expertise in eating disorders, body image, and disordered eating. She held a master's degree in clinical psychology and also has an emphasis in marriage and family therapy. She's trained at the Southern California Counseling Center with training specialized for eating disorders and works just amazing work in her private practice, not only working with those with eating disorders, but also adults dealing with difficulties in their relationships, effects of trauma, changes in mood and personality, and body image, all really tailored together around that area of eating disorder recovery and body image and disordered eating. She also was a personal trainer for 10 years prior to getting into the field of psychotherapy, and I just feel like that really brings this kind of, this active and just really engaged approach to her psychotherapy practice, and I'm just really excited for her to be spending some time with us today talking about wellness and what it really means to be able to do the work that we need to do of stop looking outward for the perfect weight, the perfect size, the perfect number on the scale to determine our happiness, and instead really moving to this place, greater connection with our own bodies, and also move to a place of healing when we stop all those distracting behaviors that we can fall prey to, especially this time of year. So I'm really excited to be able to introduce Lisa to you and for you guys to hear about her expertise and just this awesome conversation. You guys will get to hear Lisa was introduced to me by Stephanie McAdan, who was on the episode or on the podcast very, very early on. And she introduced Lisa and I, and Lisa is just this amazing ball of energy and just, she's so passionate about her work. And I'm just so excited that she was gracious enough to come on the podcast and get to know all of you guys. So I'm really excited to introduce to all of you, Lisa Crilley. Well, I am so excited to have Lisa Crilley on the podcast today. We're doing an amazing series this month on wellness, with it being kind of the month of January. But what I love about this conversation that Lisa and I have is that it will be evergreen, because wellness is always about, really being intentional with how we conceptualize and describe wellness and also our relationship with wellness in our body. So I'm so excited to have Lisa here on the show today. So welcome, Lisa. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Of course. So I don't know about your neck of the woods, but it is a cold winter afternoon today, and I am like, I can't get that heater up high enough.
I know, for LA, we're having winter. We're into forget fall. Like, it's happening right now.
It did. It happened last week, and it's like, I got to find ways to cover my citrus trees and all these things that people on the East Coast probably think that I'm crazy because I'm like, it's going to be a low of 35.
I know. I feel like such a wuss. Like, I'm walking by with like a puffy jacket. I'm like, oh, those East Coasters. Exactly.
It's true. Well, my husband, he grew up in Orange County, Southern California, and then right before high school, he moved to Northern Idaho, and talk about a big culture shock. But when we met out of college, I would always wear scarves because I live in California and I'm a therapist. So of course I wear a scarf. Like,
it's the uniform.
It's the uniform, right? And when I first met him, it's like, 68 degrees outside. And he's like, why are you wearing a scarf? And I'm like, honey, it's an accessory. And he's like, yeah, no, you wear a scarf because you need it, not because it's 68. Like, it took him years to get behind the fact that I just wear scarves to accessorize an outfit.
And that is how it's done.
Yes, absolutely. So anyways, I'm excited to have you here, and I'm really excited to be able to just slow down a little bit together today and talk about your area of expertise in working with women, not only on their relationship with their body, but also around areas of disordered eating and body image and those sorts of things, but also your expertise in the past of working in the fitness industry. So I'm just excited to spend some time with you today.
I'm excited to be here and to share that. A lot of mind, body. Let's blend it. Yeah.
Let's blend it. So thinking of that, I gave kind of your formal introduction before we started recording together, but do you want to share a little bit about the work that you're doing present day, and then we can kind of weave our way around to the other aspects?
Sure. Present day, in my private practice, I see a variety of people. I'm a psychotherapist and an MFT. People dealing with past traumas, mood, personality, and relationship issues. I'm also a clinician at the Susan B. Cravoy Institute, where we're planning on offering teaching and trainings for other therapists, and I see a variety of people for eating disorders it's a low cost facility, which is really great. It really meets the needs for these particular issues without going into like a higher level of care if, it's appropriate.
Yeah.
So that's where I am there.
Fantastic. And so, as we were talking about this idea of wellness, I'm going to give you a huge question kind of right off the bat. But how do you define wellness? Kind of not only in your own life, but in your professional practice. How do you define that? It's a term that I feel like is so open to interpretation.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a good question. Defining wellness. Well, I think I'm just going to start off by saying I hate the word balance.
I do too. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to meet somebody else. I think it's total bullshit. Sorry, Mom, yeah. I'm cussing again.
Yes.
But I hate the word balance because it is an absolutely unrealistic expectation. And yet every day we're going, have I had balance today? No, you haven't.
No.
You're not going to.
It's not going to happen. Like what looks balanced one day, the next day it's going to look different. And I think that you're really talking about doing a disservice when you're trying to live this life of balance, and it should look this way. And, it just doesn't. If putting more towards the family comes up, well, then guess what? You're not going to be able to put as much towards your body and working out and taking care of yourself and work. It's just the way life is. I think in the long run, if you can recognize that it's going to flow and that's the way life's going to be for a while, then I think you're going to have an easier time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that being able to look over the course of your life and kind of see it in a relative balance is a much more realistic expectation than, like you said, expecting ourselves to see it on a day-to-day, week-to-week, or even month-to-month basis.
Yes. Yeah, I think you can really put yourself through a lot of pain and a lot of misery trying to achieve something that's not real.
Yeah, absolutely. So throwing out the word balance, right? Because I love that. A lot of times people ask me about balance and I'm like, it's BS. But what about in terms of this idea of wellness? Because so much of the work that you do is that mind-body connection. And so when we're talking about wellness, how do you want us to kind of look at it as during our conversation today?
Looking at wellness. Are you talking about in terms of like food and body?
Yeah, let's do that one. Let's kind of go there first.
Yeah, well, when I think of wellness, not to be too simplistic, but I really think it's taking care of yourself. And at different times, that's going to mean a variety of different things, but to really able to listen and accept and understand. And again, I just keep going back to like taking care of yourself. I think that there's so many times that, much like that idea and the illusion of like this balance, what it's supposed to look like, people strive for these certain ways of being that, again, you're going to be really struggling with. And on the flip side of that, I see a lot of people really suffering by not listening to themselves and depriving themselves and, again, trying to fit themselves in this mold that's, not real, or at least not right then. So when I think of wellness, I think it really is about taking care of yourself, listening to yourself, and definitely, there's an acceptance aspect to that as well.
Yes, I think that's a big piece of it too. Like you said, there's this, this suffering that happens, this deprivation that happens when we aren't listening to ourselves. But there's also this great need for acceptance of kind of exactly where we are in that space and time. In the work that you do with women around eating disorders and disordered eating and things like that, how do you see the suffering and the deprivation kind of play out in not necessarily just the eating disorder, but the emotional impact?
I think it's all emotional. I really do. When I conceptualize and look at the eating disorder, it's a symptom.
Yeah.
It really is a symptom of other underlying things that are happening. And when I can really, kind of cut through that muck and get to what's really going on, then there's a feeding. Then there's an ability to be able to listen to yourself. And then the symptoms start to drift. They soften in a way. I mean, you're still absolutely a struggle. But I look at it as very much a symptom of something deeper going on emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And thinking about, like you said, your early work was in the fitness industry. And so what was your role in that capacity?
Was previously a personal trainer for over 10 years of my life. I think, honestly, I was planning on being a therapist this whole time. It's like all training. I would see people 1 to 3 times a week, and they would have these goals, and I would come up with programs and really help them to try to attain them. But the thing that I would always see is that people really struggled. It's like, here's the plan. This is what you want. This is how to get here. You have this support right here. And I always recognized it's the mind. There's always a block, and I could see that doing the work that I was doing in that capacity was doing nothing to touch that block.
Yeah, I would agree that, like you said, it isn't just about having the right program. It's what's standing in the way of being able to follow through on that.
That's another one too, where it's like willpower. I hate willpower. Because it's like you just have to push through. And in that push through, something's going to get in the way, and you're not going to be able to sustain that. And then you're going to feel like a failure. And then the cycle begins, and you start that diet again on Monday. And it's something new and shiny, right?
Right.
And then the same thing happens over again. And so it's this constant repetitive thing where I always knew, like, there's something in that. There's something in that that's keeping people from really getting what they want. I said that in air quotes. I know public can't see that.
Yes. And so I love that you said that about the air quotes, right? And so what is it about what people are identifying they want that is so misaligned from what they're really emotionally needing? Like what this want, I'm assuming from what you're saying is, go ahead.
No. Yeah. You were saying, you go, that you had something.
Yeah. So the want, I'm assuming, obviously what we're talking about is the body, the size, the weight, those sorts of things, right? But that is what they're believing they want. But what they're really emotionally needing is so different. And so that want, again, air quotes, is never achieved because of the emotional need that's being so deprived.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really like when I think of the disordered eating and body image stuff, it's like the issues get concretized in the body. So if I can fix this, if I can have this, then everything else is going to be okay. Now, I've also seen with even knowing people and working with people who have had bariatric surgery, that's not the case. That's why you'll see like a higher prevalence of alcoholism and certain other issues that will pop up because that mode of coping is now gone. It's inaccessible. But the issues are still, it's not the fat. It's not the body.
Yeah. It
is the underlying issues that are never going to quite be achieved because it's not, when you put it towards the body, when you put it towards food, you're not addressing it. I think of like a magician, he's doing a trick over here and he's got his hand behind his back and he's doing the other stuff. It's like, it's behind his back. The action's over there. The eating disorder is the poof. It's the illusion.
Yeah. What makes us so blind to it? Because, I agree 100% with what you're saying. And yet we swallow it whole, right? Of all these images and these expectations and things that we're supposed to be. So how do we get so blinded by thinking that perfect size, that perfect weight is actually the want versus really going, like you said, your hands behind your back. We see what we're doing. Like that's really where the issue is. What blinds us so much?
That's a
$1 million question?
Yeah, it really is. Because there's so much to it. Because, you said something too about like society and like what we are being inundated with, like constantly, like this is what looks good. This is what will make you happy. Like we're taught that on a regular basis. So you think about looking in the mirror and when you're like, less than 5% of the population looks like that. It's the impossible, and then you are constantly living in this world of comparing that. You're going to be fighting this battle that you can't ever win. And then, so there's that. There's so many things that are involved when it comes to like the body image and the disordered eating, from genetics to the biology and neurobiology. But, when I also work extensively with attachment and, why go to that place? Why go to the body? Well, I think it can be a lot, and this is hard to say, but it's easier than going toward the emotional place and what we're really deprived of and where the painful things are. When I think about going towards the body, that in some ways can be manipulated.
Well, and I mean, if you think about a profession, I mean, I love what I do. I love being a psychotherapist, but it's also one of those jobs that when people find out what you do, they either freeze up thinking that you're analyzing them, which P.S. we don't do in public, or we don't
see right through them.
Right. You're analyzing me right now, which basically means you're judging me, right? They get very, very frightened of that. Or they have been holding this big story that's totally socially off to bring up in that moment, but yet they go, oh my gosh, safe person, let me bring it up because I'm too scared to do this in a more formal capacity of going into the office and having this conversation. So if you think about this career that we've chosen, which I know you're passionate about yours as well, is that there's such a more social acceptance, if you will, around the body stuff, right? Yeah. You go down every road and, there's gyms and, you turn on the commercials this time of year and it's all about, November is all about how much food can you eat, right? And then we go, bam, all the commercials change to now lose it all, you so-and-so. Right. Yep. Absolutely. Shame. So I think too that there is such a greater social acceptance around going to the gym and losing weight and being that, that expected image rather than saying it's the emotions. This is the deeper stuff I really need to work on and being able to be comfortable talking about that.
Absolutely. When I think of the diet industry, it's $1 billion industry. And the only people it really helps is them. The people making that money, because it's going to, again, it's this repeat cycle over and over again. But, you think about the difficulty of the work that we do. It's here's somebody that's struggling and they're struggling with this thing. And then our solution is well, let's look at the real struggle, the thing that you've been trying to kind of keep away from. And that is so very painful to look at, that's the answer. And that's such a difficult thing. But I think you're talking about something really wise about to be able to do that in the capacity, a professional capacity where you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love this idea, kind of what you said a few moments ago, and I want to come back to it, is that when, as a personal trainer for 10 years, you saw this mentality of just pushing through, right? It's about the willpower or the discipline to be able to achieve your goals. And so what is that push through mentality that becomes, how would you describe that? And what, how is that so problematic?
Well, I think that push through mentality is all these other trainers and people I know popping up in my mind. I think it's a way to really get away. Mm-hmm. I think it's if I can put all my energy over here, it's the magician again. Mm-hmm. It's look over here. Then I don't have to deal with all this other stuff. I can put all my focus into the scale. I can put the focus onto, the measuring tape, the lines in my body, or, the food that I'm eating. I can put it all over there and all that concern, all that worry. Well, guess what happens when you don't do that anymore? You're left with you. And that's a scary place to be. Thinking and feeling and being in that's a scary place to be if you're alone.
Yeah. Well, as you were saying, you're kind of talking about that push-through mentality. I just wrote down distraction, right?
Totally.
It's a celebrated thing, just push through it. And all we're doing is really distracting from this greater need that is so much deeper. And also the antidote to it, right, is actually not what we're doing. It's not pushing through. It's being able to slow down and really turn inward and listen. And that's a really scary thing.
When you think about that, because, so the sitting in it and listening, that scary part is there's a lot of things that you probably don't want to listen to, or a lot of painful things you just don't want to feel. And so you may treat that with restricting or overeating or whatever your vice may be. Yeah, I think that it can be such a distraction to look at what's really going on. And when I think about what we really want, I think part of the human condition is to be connected, to have emotions and to share them with people, to have that kind of connection. And you think about that, just even the illusion of the diet industry. If you have this body, if you look a certain way, you're going to get all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's like what you said, it's such a distraction because it ends up keeping you away. So that symptom, that thing that you're doing, is really keeping you from what you want the most.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so what is when people come to that place of awareness, right? All I'm doing, I'm pushing through, I'm trying to achieve something that, like you said, is the impossible. And I'm beating my body up, right? I'm depriving it. I'm making it suffer. I'm doing all these things that aren't addressing the true source of the pain, the true source, the true anecdote, right?
Yeah.
And so I have lots of superhero fans. My children are huge superhero
I
fans.
love
So
that.
we're always talking about anecdotes. We weave it in wherever we can. So what helps with that breakthrough? Like if somebody's listening right now and they're recognizing that they're so scared to slow down and listen, right? Like that's terrifying to them. And they've got this goal and they're pushing through and they're trying to get that perfect number on the scale and they're just killing themselves in the process. Like what can help to come to a place of going, maybe I do need to reach out for support. Maybe I do need to listen to this a little bit more deeply.
I think you grab that superhero cape and you reach out for help. And this is the thing. It doesn't have to be this severity of, like you have some kind of diagnosis and then you can go. If you're ruminating on this kind of stuff, if it's occupying space in your life and it's making you really unhappy, I think it's something to look at. Absolutely. I think that, again, I keep going back to not being alone and doing it with someone. Like that's where it is. I think that's the bravest thing. I know every single one of my clients that come and see me, they're the bravest people I know.
That is so true. That is so true. And I love that you say that, it doesn't have to be the severity that we see, in the movies, right? Or we see on the news, because when I first started out in this field, I worked a lot with domestic violence and sexual assault survivors. That's really kind of where I got my feet wet in terms of working with trauma. And now I work primarily with couples and healing relationships and things like that. But I remember a client that I've known for quite a while. When she first came to me, she had a great need to come in, and she was so brave and so courageous to reach out. And she must have read, I don't know, something about me, some bio somewhere that talked about my kind of early days with really intense kind of acute trauma. And I remember her coming in and saying something to the effect of, I don't know if I should be here. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, I read that you work with all these people, and I'm not, like, my trauma's not that bad. So I feel like I'm taking a spot from somebody else. And I remember my heart broke a little bit, right? And I teared up and I remember saying, like, you're exactly where you need to be, right? There isn't this level of severity and it so ties in what we're talking about. It's that if-then mentality, right? That once I'm bad enough, then I deserve help. Right? It's like, it's such a shaming message rather than this moment, no matter how small or how big the pain is to you, it's relative to you, and therefore you're deserving of attention and healing towards it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we get that idea in our head of what it looks like to be in pain or to be suffering. And if we don't match that, we just automatically go, well, it's not bad enough for me, so what should I be complaining about?
Yeah. And then needing help. That idea of needing help is something wrong. There's something bad about that. I think that, again, that's the bravest, that those are the strong people. It's like together you have more strength. Together I think that is how you come together. I also think that when there is a lot of distraction and insistence on the number or, getting the workouts in and getting my protein in, whatever you're doing, whatever it is, it keeps you from any of your goals. It keeps you from yourself. It is. I think I had something else to say and I totally lost it, but it really does. It's the big distraction that keeps you from being connected.
Yeah. And I agree with you. It is all about connection, right? Because what we're striving for when we're trying to get to that level of acceptance, right? Based on kind of what we've been, the lie we've been sold, it's just to be connected. It's just to feel like we could be seen, to be accepted. And so tragic when we're killing ourselves in the process just to be accepted.
Yeah. And I thought of myself. Well, when I think of disordered eating or like the working out stuff that can be this losing battle over and over again, a lot of people will use that in place of help because it is a way that can kind of hold yourself together. If it's like I put all the energy over here, then I don't have to look at any of that other stuff, which is really the source. I've always had the saying in my mind of where you lack, you grow. And if you can go towards that, it hurts, right? Ouch. It's like, it's that thing that you were saying. If you are if you're kind of silent in yourself, where maybe you're not going to be reaching for food, or you're not going to be counting like the calories during the day, you just are just with yourself, there is a voice that is there. It's present. And a lot of times we want to kind of shut it off. But if we can actually listen to it, your feelings are signals. They are signals. If you can listen to that, you might be touching that lack. You might be touching something really painful. But I think that, there's old places we go where, you might have been really helpless in that. You might be really stuck in that pain, but that doesn't have to be that way anymore.
Yeah.
Where you lack is where you actually can grow.
Oh.
That means you get to have.
So true, right? And that growth, when it starts to feel uncomfortable, like you said, it hurts a little bit, that those are actually growing pains. Like that's the sign of growth. It's not, oh my gosh, that hurts, stop. It's actually that signal that we get of going, it kind of feels uncomfortable because we're becoming deeper within ourselves.
Yep.
Oh, so powerful. So thinking about that, Lisa, what resources and things like that, I definitely will include your website and things like that for people if they have questions or want to reach out, but any other resources that you can direct folks to in terms of, if they're listening right now and kind of feeling like, I got to slow down that push through mentality and maybe sit with this a little bit, and I need some support to do it because I can't do it in isolation.
Sure. I would definitely check ANAD. It's an eating disorder resource. Also the National eatingdisorder.org, NADA. I think they're great resources that can help you and find somebody in your area. But when it comes to not doing it in isolation, don't just read a book.
I love that.
Right? Well, because I think, again, it goes to that place of like, I can do this on my own. And when I think of working with people who have some body image issues and some disordered eating, so much of that is done in secrecy and private. And, going towards like a book, it's like, that might give you that kind of like boost, to get you to that Monday when you start or whatever that is, but it's not where the healing happens. So I would check out your area, go to Psychology Today is a great resource. And honestly, the way I look at it is, find 3 people and call them all. And it's really about the connection that you make. If you call somebody, you got to feel like, this is a place I could maybe be for a bit, I think it really is about the connection, but it doesn't have to happen alone. I think that's the biggest part.
Yes, I love that idea. I love being able to really have kind of breaking the isolation is such a key within what you just said. And also, too, that when we're reaching out for support, I love when people call and interview me. Like, they want to get a feel for my style, who I am, like how I show up in the room. And I love that because I'm like, wow, you're really doing exactly what you need to do is to connect and make sure that that connection is there and you feel like you're understood and that you're supported. And if you don't, I really encourage also people that are working with somebody who they think is great, but it's not working for them, that as a therapist, and I'll probably get in trouble for this, but I'm going to do a universal statement that us as therapists would rather you have the right fit than continue working with somebody just because you told them your story first. Like,
yes.
I'm okay if a client wants to go work with somebody else because they feel a better connection. Like, I'm so proud of them that they did that because it means they're grabbing a hold of their work as theirs rather than, the onus being left in the room or being put on me.
Yeah. And you're going to do your best work that way.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. So Lisa, as we kind of, come to a close, is there any words of encouragement or words of, kind of wisdom that you would like to kind of share with the audience? Because I just feel like there's, goodness gracious, my notes page is so filled up from all the great things that we talked about in this just, this quick half hour.
We're talking a lot about too, like when I'm in my mind, I'm thinking a lot of disordered eating and things like that. But, I also think about people just wanting to get in shape and feeling really good about themselves and taking better care of themselves. Something I think is really important is to be where you are. When you start to go towards I'm going to do the 12-week transformation and da-da-da. If you got a family, if you're working, if you have, you want to keep your marriage, like, whatever it is, or your partner, like, whatever that is, you have to realize where you are and what you can do. I know being in the fitness world for as long as I've been, you see people going into like whatever new fad it is and really hurting themselves for the rest of their lives, instead of this is where I am and this is where I have to go. I think about that in our work. We may see somebody like at the way they're going to be in like 10 years from now. And that's great, but they're right here in this moment. This is what they can do. And they need to do that. Be where you are and be okay with that. Again, you can kind of look at that lack and grow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is where I am. If I start to strive for somebody I'm not, I'm going to slide back. I'm going to leave. The gym's going to clear out in February, but if you're just where you are, and where you are right now, maybe once or twice a week, for 20 minutes, that might be right where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. It makes me think of a story. I want to say my kids were only maybe 2-3 months old. I have twins, and I am a runner. I've ran all my life, and I obviously wasn't running 2 months after they were born. And I remember going to a doctor's appointment, I think a dermatologist appointment or something. And I'm sitting there kind of just, I'm pretty depleted. I've got 8-week-old twins at home, and, I'm like, oh, Lord help me and save me, right? And I remember the dermatologist, the sweet little nurse, asked me, just the routine questions that you get asked before the doc comes in. And she said, do you exercise? And I said, no, because here I'm just feeling like, no, I don't exercise. Like, exercise was such part of my life prior to having the kids, and there's just no time. There's no energy. My body's not up to it yet. And I said, no. And she goes, oh, okay, so no exercise? I said, no, we just walk for about an hour once a day. And she looked at me and she said, that's exercise. And I remember my whole body perked up, because in my head, I wasn't exercising anymore because I wasn't doing what I had been able to do before. But let me tell you, the power of the walk at 4:00 in the afternoon, we were out there every day just keeping my sanity until my husband got home, right? And so it was like my whole body changed. And I remember saying with pride, yes, I do exercise. Like, I was so proud of myself. And it was, this poor nurse looked at me like I was an absolute nut job. But it was in that moment I realized, like, Anna, you're moving and you're listening and you're taking care of your body in the best way you can right now. And that's okay. Like, be where you are versus, well, it's not, a 5-mile run, so it's not crap.
Yeah, good enough, yeah.
Right. And it was so interesting. And I literally remember my whole body changing as she very politely reminded me, yeah, that's called exercising. You're moving, and it was really powerful just to be reminded of that in that moment. Cause I was, just so depleted.
Yeah. I love that story. It's funny because I see a lot of that. It's like, not just comparing yourself with society, but comparing yourself with the old you.
Yes.
But you also have this full, amazing life in other areas. Like, things are going to maybe not look the way you want them to be, that kind of ideal version, but you still get to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so cool. Well, I cannot thank you enough for this time together. I'm just so excited to, share this episode and just really have this idea of wellness that we're carrying with us, and, throwing out that nasty word balance and that nasty word willpower. I love that. I think those are great words to throw out and really just embrace where we are and move to this place of acceptance and the healing that comes when we build those connections. Oh, I'm so inspired.
I love it. This was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, such an honor. That was an amazing interview. I was so energized and inspired after I got the chance to talk to Lisa, and I just felt like I couldn't wait to share this episode with you, because I love how she talks about this push through mentality, right? And that we're told to just kind of buckle down and push through and get to our goals and have that willpower, but that really all of those things tend to be a distraction from ourselves. And what we really need for healing, especially around body image and negative shaming messages we have around our bodies, what we really, really need is to be able to slow down and turn inward and create this place of connection. And also break the isolation, right? That when we are needing to heal, we can't do that by just reading a book. And for those of you that know me, I'm a huge reader, but I totally agree with what Lisa's saying, that when we are really struggling with something, it doesn't help to sit down with a book all the time, right? Sometimes we really need to pick up the phone and ask for help. I love how Lisa just really simplifies this need that when we are looking for help, right? When we're looking for support, that it is so important to really pick 3 people that we can call. And those 3 people, whether they're therapists or counselors or whoever they may be, call them and start interviewing and seeing whether or not there is a connection with them and whether or not they can really help with what you're struggling with. Like I said on the episode, I love it when clients call and interview me. I think it's a fantastic way for them to get to know my style and for me to get to know whether or not I can be of help with whatever they're struggling with. And so I really, really love how Lisa highlighted that. One other thing that I think stood out for me when we were talking is this idea that our feelings are signals, because they so are, right? They are these amazing warning bells in our bodies that are alerting us to pay attention to something. And so often we just absolutely ignore them, right? We gloss over them and we numb them out, or we stuff them, or we exercise them away, or we do all these other things besides really slowing down and getting kind of a deeper understanding around what our body and what our soul is really needing. So I love this idea of being able to use our bodies as, and our feelings as these signals of the healing that we need to do. And lastly, I think the piece that I really will carry with me from this interview is this idea that where we lack, we grow, right? That where we are lacking in our lives, if we really slow down and honor that place, that tremendous growth happens there. And if we think about this entire month that we're devoted to these ideas of wellness, a huge part of that is the ability to slow down and turn inward. We live in the society that's telling us to go and to push through, right? And that is this message that is actually one that can become quite toxic, and one that can leave us feeling so alone and so isolated. And so I love this idea of really knowing that where we lack, we grow, and that when we slow down and tune into those places that may be lacking in our lives, we really have this unique opportunity to do tremendous growth work. So those are the things that really stood out for me in terms of my time with Lisa. I did include the 2 websites that she talked about in the podcast that she spoke about. So I'll go ahead and include those in the show notes so that you guys can access those. And her website is lisacrilley.com. And so if you guys want to reach out to her, I know she'd love to hear from you. So it's lisacrilley.com. And you can reach her there. I'll also include that in the show notes. And then the 2 websites that she shared about is the National Eating Disorders Association, which I will include, and also ANAD, ANAD. And so that I'll also include. It's for anorexia nervosa and associated disorders. It's the National Association. And so both of those will be in the show notes too. As always, I encourage you guys to reach out. This topic of wellness is one that I feel like is so perfect this time of year, but it's also one that I hope you guys come back and listen to these episodes, because oftentimes we are so bombarded with these images of, weight loss and exercise and all these sorts of things this time of year. And yet wellness, right? This idea of wellness, of being in touch with ourselves and taking care of ourselves in really healthy ways, is something that we need continual reminders of. When Lisa talked about be where you are and really this place of acceptance, when she said that, I just felt this warmth kind of fall over me, because I realized that absolutely we have to be where we are, and that if we force ourselves to be anywhere different, we're just going to end up hurting ourselves and being in this place of suffering. So I encourage all of you guys to please reach out to Lisa if you have questions, and you're welcome to direct them to me too. I can, help as much as I can, and then obviously send you off to Lisa if I'm not able to help. You can always reach out at the SpeakPipe app for kind of the audio feedback. I love to hear your guys' voices. And also to Anna at herlifeunscripted.com. We are now into the new year, which means pretty soon we'll be rolling out all the details for our live events. So I really encourage you guys to head over to the website, herlifeunscripted.com. And on the retreats tab, there's a little box there if you want to fill out if you're interested in getting more information about those dates as they are released. So thank you so much for just slowing down with me today. Thank you for letting me into your hearts and into your worlds. And thank you for going on this journey of being able to explore wellness with me. I think it just couldn't be a more perfect time. Take care, you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Want to learn about the latest retreats, workshops, and speaking events hosted by Anna? Head over to herlifeunscripted.com to get in on all the juicy details. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast so we can continue to grow our amazing audience. Lastly, be sure and send in your voice feedback via the SpeakPipe app or to Anna at herlifeunscripted.com. We can't wait to hear from you.